A bankruptcy court and a judge in Delaware has given New York law firm Sullivan Cromwell the green light to continue representing FTX during its bankruptcy proceedings. Joining us now is CoinDesk regulatory reporter Cheyenne Ligon. Well, not everybody's happy about that, particularly a guy who doesn't know how to comb his hair. Is that correct?
That is correct, but not just him. A bipartisan group of senators is pretty upset about this, and the U.S. Trustee's Office also raised some red flags about Sullivan and Cromwell being appointed debtors' counsel. So it's kind of interesting. It's fun to report on because bankruptcy is usually pretty boring, but this has been a ride already.
Well, particularly, what are they upset about? I mean, I like getting advice from Sam Bankman-Fried on this is, it's like, gee, the guy who blew up, the whole thing is now telling us what he thinks should be done. But what is everyone else complaining about?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I feel like you can't really take Sam's Substack posts very seriously at this point. He's obviously fighting tooth and nail to make himself look better. But, when we go to like the actual legitimate concerns in this case, there are some, right? I mean, when Sullivan and Cromwell was initially suggested as debtors' counsel, and they've been working as debtors' counsel since the bankruptcy was declared, but they have to get approval from a judge to, officially step in as debtors' counsel. Some concerns were raised that they had not been very forthcoming, I guess you could say, about some of their involvement in FTX, namely that they had already done about $8.5 million worth of work for the company, and that two of their former lawyers, including a former partner at Sullivan and Cromwell, Ryan Miller, who's now FTX's general counsel, were employed at FTX. So there were some concerns about, kind of kickbacks, and basically, if Sullivan and Cromwell's job is to investigate what happened at FTX, how hard are they going to be on themselves? How hard are they going to be on former partners? So, I mean, that was the concern. But ultimately, at the hearing on Friday, the judge just said, look, these are potential conflicts of interest, but this is a huge bankruptcy. You're not going to find a good law firm that's not tied to this case in any way. And that's pretty fair.
Interesting. So former FTX CEO Sam Bankman-Fried has weighed in on this too. What is he saying exactly?
Well, his most recent Substack post basically said that, FTX US is solvent, and that's what he's been saying since this started, and that basically he was pressured into declaring bankruptcy prematurely by Sullivan and Cromwell. So, obviously there's some insinuation there that Sullivan and Cromwell has its finger in the pie, and that, maybe they're trying to take money. But again, it's like, how seriously can you take that? Sullivan and Cromwell was tasked with investigating what happened in FTX. So it makes sense that people that were perhaps involved in the fraud are going to want to throw bombs into the process.
Yeah.
Sullivan Cromwell partner James Bromley also attempted to characterize him as having a checkered past. What can you tell us about that?
Sure. So that was Daniel Friedberg, who was, I think, FTX's chief compliance officer, chief regulatory officer, either way, titles that don't sound so good in retrospect, not SBF. And that is referring to a poker scandal in 2008, I think. To sum it up, basically, there was a huge poker scandal in 2008 that Daniel Friedberg was allegedly involved in and was kind of instrumental in helping kind of clean up. So you could say that he's been tied to large internet frauds in the past. And, it was his declaration that was filed last week that was kind of these bombshell allegations about Sullivan and Cromwell's misdoings. And the judge was like, look, this is hearsay, this is rumors, and I'm not going to allow him to testify. I'm not allowing this to be entered into the record.
You're not bored 1 minute, are you?
No, it's endless excitement.